I know what a lot of you are thinking right now. Rotors are cheap. It would just be the same price basically to go out and buy a brand new set rather than going to all the trouble of getting them resurfaced. Now, while that may be true if you have a little car and you're buying Toys R Us quality brake rotors. Hey, this is Josh, a budget mechanic. Today I want to talk to you about brake rotors. Buying brake rotors can be expensive. I'm going to give you a few tips on how you can make your rotors last the life of your car. Make sure you stick around to the end because I'm going to show you how you can avoid replacing damaged rotors. Once you get your wheel off, it exposes the rotor. This is it right here, the shiny metal disc. The brake pads grab onto that thing and stop your car. Now if you take your car in to get your brake pads changed, your mechanic will probably tell you you've got to change your rotors as well. Thing is, you really don't. As long as you take good care of these rotors, they will last many brake pad changes. The first thing that every driver should do to maintain the life of their rotors is to downshift when going down hills. So you may say, I have an automatic transmission, I can't downshift. Well, it's not true. All cars are going to have a way for you to go into some kind of manual mode or towing mode where it downshifts the transmission and the transmission starts slowing the car down so that it takes the pressure off the brakes from having to do all the stopping. Because if you ride your brakes too far, too long, that friction creates lots of heat, and that's what starts damaging not only the pads, but also the rotors. Do yourself and your car a favor, learn how your car downshifts, because it actually only takes one time of going down a really long steep hill, overheating these brakes, and you will ruin your pads and your rotors, and you will need to replace them. If you've ever seen videos of cars with glowing brake rotors coming down the mountain, it's because they weren't downshifting. They were riding the brakes so hard that the rotors actually started glowing hot. And I bet you anything, once those cooled down, those suckers were all kinds of warped. The second thing you need to do to prolong the life of your rotors is replace your brake pads on time and with good quality brake pads that are right for your type of driving. If you let your brake pads wear completely out and they get down to the metal, they're just going to tear your rotors apart and there's nothing you're going to be able to do to save them. If you're interested in learning more about brake pad types, we have a great video on that and we'll include the link. One of the most overlooked things you can do to prolong the life of your rotor is resurfacing. Resurfacing is just what it sounds like. A lot of auto parts stores will offer this service. They put it on a machine, spins it around, and cuts down the top surface of the metal to make it flat and smooth again. So that would remove things like the warping from overheating that makes like a really shaky steering wheel under heavy braking. It would remove rust, the pitting that would make a grinding sound and really destroy your brake pads. It would also remove some of the glazing that you get from overheating. When you have a glazed rotor, it doesn't work as well, often really squeaky, and resurfacing would help that. And you can put those right back on your vehicle, keep on driving, potentially save yourself hundreds of dollars. If any of that damage is too extreme, resurfacing isn't going to help. And the reason is because they can only shave off a certain amount of metal. So when you take your rotor in, they're going to measure it with a caliper and they're going to decide, based on the vehicle, if there's enough meat there to shave off some of your rotor. But if it's too deep or too warped, there's not enough metal to work with and it becomes unsafe. Also, if your rotors are actually cracked, like have spider cracks in them, resurfacing is not going to fix that and they're still a dangerous rotor. Additionally, deep gouging, like what happens if your brake pads run out of material and it goes metal to metal, it'll quickly make gouges in the rotor that are too deep for resurfacing to fix. A couple things to consider when resurfacing rotors is you can't do it indefinitely. Every time you resurface the rotors, it removes actual metal and your rotors get a little bit thinner. So that means they're more prone to overheating. So if you're someone that lives in a hilly area or you just can't remember to downshift, so you're always riding your brakes, this may not work for you. And just as a side note, you can get rear drums resurfaced in the same way. I know what a lot of you are thinking right now. Hey, rotors are cheap. It would just be the same price basically to go out and buy a brand new set rather than going to all the trouble of getting them resurfaced. Now, while that may be true if you have a little car and you're buying Toys R Us quality brake rotors, but if you have good quality rotors on any size of car, they're going to be significantly more expensive than getting a resurface job. To illustrate, where I live in Hawaii right now, getting your rotors resurfaced is like $20 to $35 a rotor. To buy a good quality rotor for, say, this minivan, it's going to cost me around $80 to $120 per rotor to replace them brand new. Now, if you're driving a big truck or some performance rotors like drilled, slotted, high carbon rotors, the difference is going to be even more. Also, if you already own a really high quality set of rotors that you've already bought and put on your car, it just makes sense that you get them resurfaced and continue to use them rather than having to buy them all over again. Unless you can find a good quality, cheap pair of rotors to replace your damaged ones, it just makes sense to save the money and get them resurfaced. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe. Peace out.